Okay, hello everyone. This is my third attempt today, and I hope it's the final attempt, and I hope this is really going to go well. So I'm just going to look on the main screen and make sure that that it is coming across live properly, and I hope you can all hear me. So my apologies. I'm very excited to show this to you, and I'm just going to see if I can see you in the chat and that these things are working well, but I think at the moment we seem to be live. And what you see here, I'm going to talk a bit about hummingbirds in a very special way. Hummingbirds are very well known in North America, and they seem so fragile at first when we look at them, very fragile. They seem to be so fast that they're rather blurry. But there's much more to hummingbirds that we may not even know. And I always saw this fuzzy, blurry thing, so I took a closer look in the last 2 months, put a lot of work into this, and I wanted to share this with you. So take a look. This is the type of footage you would get when a hummingbird is feeding. The first thing you'll notice, it hovers. And for birds to hover is actually unusual because they consume a lot of energy. Incredible energy. I'm just going to see. I can see some here. I can see Jenny and Jackie. Very nice. So feel free to comment and put in some questions. That's fine. The hovering ability of the hummingbird is very unique, and they seem to be so energetic. In fact, they are more muscular per unit weight than the best athletes we have, and they can burn sugar at a faster rate than any of us can. They as you know, they consume nectar and sugar water at a very high rate. In fact, they have to go to feeders every 20 to 30 minutes. Hi Margot, good to see you all. Very nice. Keep on commenting. This is part of the live session. This is part of the fun. And moreover, what is interesting is their consumption of oxygen is extremely efficient. They consume 10 times more oxygen per mass than the best athletes we have. So they're obviously very well designed. They're highly muscular, they're highly energetic, and they're very efficient. So that's, hi Adora, I see you too. Very nice, good. So keep on commenting. So, but the interesting thing is that even when you take a look with the normal camera and you take a shot at 1/2000th of a second off a video, you get a very strange image like I did here. Something doesn't look right here. Of course, that's not a hummingbird. A hummingbird puts its wings symmetrical. And what you can see here is what you call a rolling shutter. I hadn't even known of this phenomenon because a video, if you take a screenshot from a video, even at 1/2000th of a second, the video screens, the sensor is screened from the top to the bottom. And by the time the sensor is read out at the bottom, things have moved on. And that shows you how fast a hummingbird is. So this doesn't happen to you in normal photography, but it does happen to you with videos. So very interesting. It's an artifact that has nothing to do, but it makes it rather artistic. How did I do this in the last weeks? I'm showing you a video here. The setup on the right, you just saw my high-speed camera, and on the left, there you can just see are very powerful lamps. You need lots of powerful lamps if you're going to do things in slow motion. And then I had a hummingbird feeder, which I exchanged. The hummingbirds became more and more acquainted with me with time. It takes lots of patience, but eventually I did get some interesting footage. So let's jump right in. So now we're going to the world of slow motion. The hummingbird vibrates its wings at about 60 times per second. It does more, sometimes up to 100 times per second. It can also do less. But so what you're seeing here is one flap. You can see how incredibly versatile the hummingbird is, how agile it is. It has several degrees of freedom, much more than the 3 degrees of freedom we know. The 3 degrees of freedom that we know is to shift in horizontal 2 and 1 in vertical. But because it can also twist around its own body in 3 dimensions, it seems to have 6 degrees of freedom, which is rather incredible. So just see how it is avoiding the wasp here, at the same time putting the tail feathers out, to make a menacing look, and to twist around its axis very quickly. So it has unusually high maneuverability for a bird. What is interesting about a hummingbird is, why are they no big hummingbirds? Why don't they look like eagles? The answer lies because they're so muscular, as I said before. And when you double the mass of muscles, the energy output doesn't go proportional to that. There's a maximum. So hummingbirds are optimized flyers. They're better than helicopters. They're better than anything we've ever seen or known. And now, only in the last years, through high-speed photography, are we getting to learn more about its behavior. In fact, I was amazed when I was working on the video. You can see our Jessie, looking at the back. She thought my footage was so real that she used to come up to the screen and try and touch it, because she was so intrigued by the hummingbird just as much as I was. So obviously I must be doing something right to get a... Oh, Gentleman Ghost is there, do fantastic size perspective. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gentleman Ghost. That's great. Nice to see you here. So here are some of these incredible maneuvers that hummingbirds come. Look at the way it seems to glide on air in the most incredible way. And typically also, they would come in at such a speed, and all this is happening at a fraction of a second. Because remember again, what you're seeing here, 60 times the stroke of a hummingbird corresponds to about 1 second. And you can see exactly how they maneuver. Beautiful. You can see it time and again. They would come in gliding on air, almost vertical pitch. Imagine an airplane doing this, pulling their tail feathers out to a full break, doing a torsion. There you can see it, twisting in the air, turning and having complete stability, then stopping in front of the feeder for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then landing. It's the same again and again. And you can see exactly how they move their bodies very elegantly. And you will notice, yeah, hummers are very efficient flyers. Yes, Jackie, they are. They consume energy at an incredible rate, and yet the hovering seems to be nothing for them. You will notice they always keep their heads completely stable. And that is because things are moving at such a rate in their world. We are so slow motion for them. They're moving at such a fast rate that their vision has to be perfect. Their vision, their perception. And that is true for all birds. The brain and especially the eyes are kept completely stable so that they can process everything much faster. But then there seem to be so many questions. Just look at this male Anna hummingbird coming in. What I did here is I put a little bit of wind. If you look at, let me just jump back one clip because maybe I didn't explain that. But you can see on the lower left there is an industrial fan, and I created artificial wind in order to study them, how they would respond to stronger winds. And I made good use of it. So I'll jump back to the clip now. And you can see that there's wind blowing, and you can see how easily the hummingbird can deal with high turbulence. And the maneuverability of this bird is incredible. It can fly forwards, backwards, sideways. And now look carefully at the way the hummingbird is moving its wings. That's really important. You are very used to, from an eagle, just moving the wings up and down. A hummingbird is similar to an insect. It moves it in an 8. Now I cannot draw on the screen, which I originally wanted to do, but just look at my hand now. You always follow the thumb, okay? That's how it rotates. It rotates like that, always following the thumb. And this 180-degree movement, backwards, forwards, shows, if you look very carefully at the wing, you will see that they do exactly the same as insects do. Only they have much more control over their wings than insects do, because insects do not have a hand. Birds have very similar. They have an upper elbow, then they have the radius here, and then they have the hand. And with the hand, they do the fine control of the primary feathers. A hummingbird has 10 primary feathers and 6 secondary feathers, very different to an eagle. Most birds have 10 primary feathers. Those are the big flying feathers. But the secondary feathers of an eagle are much more. A hummingbird has far less feathers, but it has the most dense feathers of all mammals that we know. So that's quite interesting. Like humans treading water, yes, yes. And what you will notice, that they can fly backwards and forwards, and it's only by studying videos very carefully do you understand how they can actually fly backwards. What I've learned is they change the pitch. So when they fly sideways, let's say they want to fly to the right, okay? Well, I don't know if you're seeing it right or left, it doesn't matter. They want to do it one side. They will indeed curve like this and keep their heads straight. So they have very good torsional abilities. Their head stays straight. The body, you'll see this on this this male hummingbird too, will stay straight. And then they put more. They will put more amplitude on the outer wing, and that turns them like this. Okay, very skillful. And then to stop the whole movement, they'll go to one direction and then balance it again. That's been my observation time and again. Very skillful, and even very simple maneuvers look incredibly complex. You have to look at these videos again and again. So very interesting. So how do they do with high turbulence? Let's take a look at the next video. This is a hummingbird coming in at quite a high turbulence, and you can see, similar to an airplane, only much more elegant. They don't have a tail or anything like airplanes do, but very fine control, no problem. Always their wing frequency varies somewhere between about 30, 40 to 60, 70, 80 per minute. Okay, so the beats that you see there per second. Yeah, this is all happening incredibly fast. Reminds me of a dragonfly. Yes, gentleman goes, that is a good parallel. And a dragonfly, of course, you have these with with double wings. Susan's also there. That's very good. Very good. So that's fine. That's fine. So you'll be able to see this later. So beautiful maneuverability. That's what I saw. And what is also interesting is their feet are very weak. You can see here, I just played this backwards and forwards. You may have seen this in one of my clips, but it shows that they use their wings far more for maneuvers. They are high energy birds. They can consume sugar. If we consumed sugar at the rate that a hummingbird would, we would die of diabetes in no time. Okay, so they have an incredibly efficient metabolism, which we don't have, in order to digest sugar water and not even dry out, which we would. So you can see their feet. The way they're using their feet is definitely not for stability. Okay, they're using their feet. They're mainly using their wings. Can watch it all. Amazing. That's good. That's good. And now comes something really astounding that I observed, and it came like a complete surprise. And in fact, I couldn't find this anywhere in literature. Watch this now. What do you notice? So I changed the feeders sometimes. I wanted to study them when they perch. I wanted to study them when they hover and feed. And this is very interesting because you'll say, what's wrong with the feathers here? Well, I didn't know at first, and I looked at the feathers very carefully, and I found that the feathers are very symmetrical, so there's no damage there. They're molting. Of course they're molting. They molt, I think, about once a year, and you can see the inner primary feathers are clearly missing. Now, my assumption, and I asked this question to David Hancock, look at this video. How do you think this would compare to a hummingbird that's not molting? Do you think the wings would go faster? Well, he said, of course they will. I expect them to be probably twice as fast. Well, that's what I thought. And now comes the surprise. I was very lucky that just shortly after, a hummingbird came to the same feeder, and that was not molting. Now, just have the frequency in your head. Just look at the frequency now, okay? And now look at this. Now, isn't that a surprise? Isn't that a surprise? The frequency is more or less the same. It differs slightly, so slightly that you could say this differs from one hummingbird to the next. But the wings, the design of nature is so incredibly efficient that even the missing primary feathers do not seem to make a difference. That came as a big surprise to me. A big surprise. Because they hover. They don't glide like other birds do. They hover. And yet, it didn't seem to matter. And then I started reading more about them, and I found out that a lot of them do their major migrations whilst they're molting. Now that's incredible. That means that nature solved the problem of molting to such an incredible extent that it doesn't matter. They can migrate for thousands of miles right away from Alaska all the way down to Mexico. So that's incredible. Brenda says it's amazing. I just live these birds. They are fascinating to watch. They are absolutely fascinating. They are, and I'll tell you more about them in a while. So that came as a surprise even to people like David Hancock, who know so much about birds. Just these type of high-speed videos reveal something absolutely stunning about them. So let's take a closer look now and see how they actually feed. And that was another thing that I found interesting. You will find something that there are questions I don't know the answer to. One thing is, if you look very closely, let's take a very close look here at the way they're feeding. You can see they have a long tongue, and we'll talk about the tongue in 1 second. But you'll notice, look at the rate. Oh my goodness. 1 second. Sorry, my internet went down for a second. I should be back now. Wait a sec. Internet should be back now. Yeah, my internet's back now. I think I had a small outage. Sorry about that, but I think I'm back. Let me see. Are you? I just have to be sure. Can you still? I hope I'm still online because I had a small minor outage. So I hope this is okay. Sorry about that. Sometimes the internet still seems to be playing up a bit. Yes, it's back. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. So the connection is back. I apologize for that. There are things that I can't always control. Thanks, Susan, and thanks, Margot. I'm back. That's fine. Okay. So what is interesting is their look at their wing frequency. They're doing the 60 times a second, and they drink about 10 to 15 times per second. Now, what is interesting to observe is that their wings seems to be flapping irrespective of how they drink. So that raises the question: how can they control wings at 60 times per second? How can a fly control the neural things at the neural response at 200 times a second? And the answer is I couldn't find the answer to that, because when I tried to Google this, the answer was always they have lots of muscles. That's not my question. My question is how the neural response is actually possible to communicate with the wing, because we can't do that. If I shake my hand very fast, that's as fast as I can do this, right? If I vibrate my tongue like this, this is not a voluntary thing. This is happening because I'm using the vibration of the air in order to vibrate my tongue. So I'm not controlling my tongue at the moment. If I hit my leg, that's an involuntary response, but even the involuntary response will take quite a long time to happen, okay? So my question then is, even if this was an involuntary response of the wings, how does the hummingbird control its wings that it seems to be flapping at such a rate? Because the neural speed, the speed at which information is being transferred couldn't be fast enough. Okay, so I don't know the answer to that. That's quite interesting. So I just wanted to give that to you, how interesting it is to study them. So anyway, let's get to the way they drink. And this is some footage I'm really proud of. This footage is, I did this through a glass tube, and you can actually see very carefully, look at this, you can see the bifurcation of the tongue, which is incredible. If you look carefully, you can see the beak just popping through there, and you can see that they are able to control independently, the angle at which they come in, the curvature, and also where they're going. Okay, so this was for me absolutely remarkable. And I'll show you a few more clips why I'm so amazed at this. This is a hummingbird coming in very slowly, and you can just see the tongue coming out, just giving a beautiful, and you can see the way it's drinking again, which is irrespective of the frequency of the wings. Okay, so obviously this is some neural response that they're used to, right? And here again, you can see the complete control of the tongue, and I'll explain to you in a second how this whole thing actually works. But you can see their sips are going very independent, sometimes at one angle, sometimes at another angle. Okay, so this clip told me a lot. And here's the final one that I have, all different angles. And you can see here it's coming in straight, and here it looks like it's one, it's not, you can't see the bifurcation. The initial thought was that it was some capillary movement that gets the fluid up, but it didn't make sense because capillaries are very slow. And capillaries wouldn't explain this either. If it was a capillary function, we wouldn't understand why would it come in with two different, with a bifurcated tongue, and why then would it suck it up like that? So these things didn't make sense. And it's only been in 2015, a recent paper, where they found out that it's not capillary action. It is that the tongue itself consists of very tiny cylinders. It's really funny. And they're sort of grooves, and they open, and they seem to enclose the liquid and then squeeze the liquid somehow. I haven't completely understood the mechanism, but squeeze it through. So you can see nature has done the most incredible inventions in so many ways, and we're only now beginning to understand and reveal them through things like what I'm doing, through high-speed photography and being able to communicate this to the world. So in the time that I've spent the last 2 months where there were no eagles and I've intensely studied hummingbirds, I've only scratched the surface, but the surface has been so incredibly interesting. What an incredible journey. And by the way, next year, I'm going to go to Ecuador, and I'm going to take lots of footage because now I understand a lot about hummingbirds. Ecuador has the highest population of different hummingbirds, and I will continue my studies there, and I'll probably also do something in West Texas when you have the major migration through the states to Mexico, end of July. So my fascination with hummingbirds has only started, and I hope that I could share with you my enthusiasm and why these, why I think hummingbirds are so incredibly intriguing and are worth studying. So it's good not only to study one bird like the eagle, you have to take the other extreme to really appreciate how wonderful nature is. Okay, so on that note, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this, and I apologize again for the poor connection I had. Now this connection was finally good, and I will do some more on hummingbirds. By the way, I will get back to eagles. They're coming back, and I'm going to do now I've got enough practice. I'm going to do a lot of coverage of slow motion of eagles to look at their feather structure when they fly and so on. So I do hope that you'll stay with me, and my apologies that I've been absent for quite some time, but I can only broadcast things if I have something to say. And my hummingbird project seemed to be more laborious than I initially thought, and I wouldn't just broadcast something I don't understand. I'm beginning to understand some of it, and I find it absolutely intriguing, and I certainly hope that you can share the enthusiasm with me. Okay, so on that note, well, thank you for joining, and if you liked what I'm doing, please leave comments. That always helps. And like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done. Thank you very much.